In the vast universe. Huge amounts of fleet above. Looking at the two figures above, the expression on Loki's face was slightly broken. The complexion also became more and more weird. For a while, I even doubted my life. This is so. Forget about Thanos, he was already prepared for this. After all, it is something that has been prepared and expected. What the hell is that Thor next to him? That silver scale breastplate, red cloak. Blonde with big beard. Even the Mjolnir in his hand. It is so familiar that it cannot be more familiar. Shouldn't he still be in Asgard? Why did it appear on Thanos' fleet? He yelled in disbelief. Also, why did he sit with Thanos? Could it be that this thick-eyed man also betrayed the revolution? Above, watch the look on Loki's face. Thanos couldn't help but smile on his face. Turning around, smiling, looks like you've freaked out our Prince Loki. Next to it, there is still a figure shrouded in light. At least, that's how he sees it. Only, the image of the Supreme Intelligence will be different in everyone's eyes. He will be in everyone's heart, the way of the most important person. In front of everyone. For example, in front of him. The Supreme Intelligence once incarnated as Gamora. Only. No matter how you look at it, how awkward. It's much more honest after a beat, and this time. Caught off guard. Loki is clearly a little taken aback. His eyes were full of disbelief, keeping warm in place. Okay. Hearing the words, Supreme Wisdom cast aside the figure below. It seems that he can't accept this way for a while. After speaking, he returned to the original state. However, he couldn't help but feel a little weird. The prince who betrayed Asgard. Inside, the most important person. But Thor, who has always been in love with him and killed him. In this regard, he said that he only wanted to say one thing in his heart. Your circle is a mess, soon. In Loki's eyes, Thor's figure instantly collapsed. It turned into a figure shrouded in light. In my heart, I suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at the smiling Thanos above, he couldn't help asking. Who is this? Supreme Intelligence, head of the Kree Empire, Thanos replied casually. Then, he looked over with interested eyes. Prince of Asgard? Loki? Why are you here? He was a little curious. This daring guy who dared to fight for the throne in front of Odin. What is the purpose of coming to him? Supreme Intelligence. Hearing this, Lu Ji suddenly smiled wryly. At the same time, I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. No wonder. No wonder they met in such a weird way. I don't even know where the saying came from. Anyway, the experience of meeting the Supreme Wisdom cannot be overstated. Once, he didn't know what kind of meaning it contained. And now, after meeting, he finally understood. However, make up your mind. Loki temporarily suppressed the thoughts in his heart. Soon, facing Thanos' question, he said respectfully. My lord, I hope to join you. For this, I bring you enough sincerity. Oh? Sincerity? Hearing this, Thanos suddenly became interested, and looked over with great interest. All kinds of secrets about Asgard. Among them, there is also a method on how to remove the enchantment. Loki has a confident smile on his face, very respectful. That's it. Thanos was suddenly surprised. He thought that this guy had some shocking secrets to tell him. Asgard's secret, I think I know more than you. Even what you don't know is that before you and Thor, Odin had a daughter, right? As for Asgard's barrier, what's the use of this thing? The most troublesome thing is Odin, not Asgard's army. This is so. What the hell, it's fine if the prepared rhetoric doesn't work. Odin also has a daughter? How come I don't know? Did I live in Asgard for so many years, is it fake? For a moment, the smile on Loki's face froze on his face. The face is full of capitalized, bewildered expressions. Immediately, he recovered from the shocking news. He looked over suspiciously. He had reason to be skeptical. This is a lie fabricated by the purple sweet potato essence in front of me. The purpose is to disturb his mind. However, no evidence was found. At this, Thanos couldn't help but smile immediately. Confront Odin if you don't believe me. Definitely, the premise is that you have not been beaten to death by him. Kamar Taj. Inside the magic holy place. On the huge training ground made of Qingxi boards. Dusty. Phantoms appeared one after another. Following. There was also a roaring explosion. Sonic boom. Not far away. Russell looked bored. I couldn't help but stretch out my hand and yawned. You woke me up so early for this matter? That's it? Just because awakening has a super ability. Excited and unable to sleep at night? Waking him up from his dream early in the morning? Fortunately, it was Wanda who came. There is an extremely beautiful and innocent face as a foil. It eased his waking up a little bit. If it was someone else, he probably would have thrown him into someone's dirty feet. Aside. Hearing this, the excited expression on Wanda's face froze for a moment. Turning his head, he looked over with some doubts. Supreme Mage, isn't that something to be happy about? With big bright eyes, Russell couldn't bear to hit her too much. I had no choice but to shrug my shoulders and said helplessly. Well, it is true. At least, for Wanda, it does. Guided by magical powers, her origin magic power. There is no doubt that it will be even stronger. At the same time, it will be smoother. There will be no ability out of control situation. However, for Pietro, he might not be so lucky. The awakening of the extreme speed ability allowed him to obtain an unimaginable speed at once. However, following, it is a subtle transformation of the body. Physically, it's okay to say. It's just a change in the level of the brain, but it makes Russell feel a little shuddering. This point, he has personally experienced. Although these problems have been perfectly solved by him. High-speed senses, high-speed thinking, just thinking about it makes me feel a little bit pained. What will happen when in your eyes, any movement of other people is like a snail? When it takes less than half a second for you, it can be done in minutes for others. How about even a matter of hours? Unbelievably fast. This is just an appearance, quick shooter. Sometimes, it is actually a kind of torture, especially while doing something that changes color. Thinking of this, Russell couldn't help feeling a little emotional. It seems that sometimes, too fast is not a good thing. Fortunately, he has magic to help, soon. The test is complete. Dust rolled up all over the sky, slowly falling. The ringing in his ear and snapping fingers also stopped. Immediately, Tony ran over with an excited face. Supreme Mage. It's unbelievable, he's even faster than most supersonic fighters. Amazing Mach 5. Mach 5? Isn't that normal? Russell was unimpressed. As a speedster. Known as the Quicksilver of Marvel's fastest man. This speed, for him, it's nothing more than normal. However, for his flat reaction, Tony expressed some doubts about life. Supreme Mage, don't you think this matter is a bit strange? Is this the speed that humans can achieve? Don't you wonder how he obtained such an ability? Not curious. Russell shook his head decisively, without giving him a chance to continue. If it were someone else, he might not be able to help but explore the reason. However, for the siblings, don't ask, asking is ability. Okay. Hearing this, Uni couldn't help but sighed with a wry smile. It seems that Supreme Mage is well informed. Think about him. When I first saw these two super ability brothers and sisters, my jaw almost dropped from shock. He even wondered if these two people were being targeted by some evil god. And now, after a short test, there is only envy left in his heart. Sour. Why don't I have a super ability like Awakening? Even if it has become a powerful mage, he still couldn't hold back the tears of envy. And all this, it's all because of the abilities of the two brothers and sisters, they are really too powerful. It makes him feel that the magic he has learned these days is even a little difficult to deal with. At this time, the figure of Pietro came over and greeted him respectfully. Supreme Mage. Glancing at him, Russell couldn't help frowning. He turned his head and looked sideways. You designed this battlesuit for him? A silver and white battlesuit, shining in the sun. With his silver hair color, it is really eye-catching. Only. It's me. Tony was stunned when he heard that. Nodded and asked, Supreme Mage, what's wrong with this battlesuit? Hearing this, Russell couldn't help giving him a blank look, and said angrily. Why not use vibranium material? Because it's expensive, Tony blurted out directly. After finishing speaking, I suddenly felt that I had slipped up a bit. Looking back around, he smiled and explained. Ahem. This is a special battlesuit made of superconducting fiber material, which can withstand extreme pressure. Moreover, it is more portable and easy to carry around. It is definitely the most suitable battlesuit for Pietro. At the end, he couldn't help but add another sentence. Definitely, vibranium is also good. It's just that it's too expensive, I can't afford it. Ha ha, you liar. Everyone couldn't help but curse in their hearts. And Russell was directly amused by what he said. Good guy. Wearing a whole set of vibranium battlesuits, how dare you say you have no money? I see that you sincerely want to kill Quicksilver. Immediately, Russell leaned over and whispered. secretly tell you, I saw a picture of the future. Quicksilver will be shot to death, so, you get it. Arrange the vibranium battlesuit for me immediately. Also, the whole body is covered, even the visor is indispensable. What the hell? If you want me to bleed, just say so. Such a fast speed will be killed by bullets? I'll screw your head off. New York, Trident Building. Shield. On the big screen, the astonishing numbers kept rising. In the hall, there was a dead silence. There was no sound. Staring blankly at the picture on the screen. He held his breath and concentrated, not even daring to take a breath. There was a long silence. Nick Fury looked up, eyes deep. Taking a deep breath, he couldn't help but speak, breaking the silent atmosphere. When did this situation start to appear? Next to him, Hill Agent came to his senses when he heard the words. Just now. As he said that, he looked over with eyes full of disbelief. If it wasn't for the fact that his face was captured on the satellite image. I will never believe that this is the speed that a human being possesses. However, even so, many people still can't believe it. Humans on horseback. This is simply a humanoid supersonic fighter. Moreover, it is still the kind of flight that sticks to the ground. Anywhere is a disaster. Heard the words. Nick Fury suddenly smiled wryly. Let alone Hill. Even he has witnessed all this with his own eyes. Still can't believe it now. This is really unscientific. Alright. And it's not magic at all. If he hadn't been there before, he would have a certain understanding of the magic holy place. Might as well, like everyone else, mistake this for magic. Common mage equals common human plus magic. Of this, he can be sure. Even mage is just a mortal existence. It's just that they have the protection of magic power. As for the existence of supreme mage, it cannot be generalized from person to person. Think of him basking in the sun on the outer side of the earth every day. Things that fly into the depths of the universe at every turn. He smiled even more wryly in his heart. Perhaps, he has already reached the category of non-human beings. A billion points better than common mage. Soon, he made up his mind. Turned around and asked. Hill Agent, has the investigation result regarding his identity? Pietro Django Maximov. Hill responded quickly. He is an orphan, lost his parents since he was a child, and lives in a slum. Not long ago, he disappeared. Both of them knew it in their hearts. Missing. It's an understatement. To be more precise, it should have entered the magic holy place. Well, one lucky one. However, after speaking, Hill suddenly remembered something. Couldn't help but add another sentence. By the way, he also has a younger sister who disappeared with him. Alright. It's not common siblings, judging from the ability of this big brother. I'm afraid, these two are existences with special abilities. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. The huge shield has gathered elite agents from all over the world. Unexpectedly, none of them could be seen by the magic holy place. Don't you say it's irritating? Suddenly, thinking of a certain question, Nick Fury's face suddenly changed, and his heart tightened. Hastily asked, by the way, has the military taken any action? Hearing this, a weird smile appeared on Hill's face. Originally they were discussing to capture him as a test subject. In the end, after finding out that he came out of the magic holy place. It turned out that it came out of the magic holy place. That's all right. For a while, the meeting couldn't even go on. One by one, like hiding from the plague god. I left the scene in a hurry, as if I was afraid that if I took a step slower, I would get into big trouble. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Nick Fury's face. There is a picture. At the same time, I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He was really afraid of these nosy guys. Make something happen to him again. Through the existence of Carol, it was not easy to pull in a little bit with the magic holy place. If there is something else to come up with, my son. I'm afraid his heart can't stand it. Shaking his head, he stopped thinking about it. Soon, my mind was on another matter. About that Spider-Man. How about the invite job? If the time is right, you can talk to him about his parents. Anyway, I will definitely invite him into S.H.I.E.L.D. The Sorrowful Father's Alliance team is still a poor commander until now. Also, about pioneering technology. I heard that they have been investigating Tony Stark's intelligence recently. I think we need to know the inside story. After finishing speaking, I feel that this statement is not enough. Couldn't bear it, and added another sentence. Well, by the way, escorting Tony Mage, Hill. Why do I feel like you are such a licking dog? Lick. Just hard lick? Kamar Taj. Inside the magic holy place. On the training ground, several figures stood out in sight. Scarlet's energy gradually gathered. The hazy breath drifted away. Soon, Wanda's figure quickly ran to her. His face was full of excitement, and he raised his head as if asking for credit. In his eyes full of expectation, looked over and said, "Supreme Mage, what do you think of my cultivation?" "Nice." Russell nodded. At the same time, he praised without hesitation. "Being able to control this energy means that you have already succeeded in half. Much better than your big brother. At least, not like him. When ability has not been explored completely, it goes out to show off to the world." Hearing this, Wanda suddenly smiled. A smile bloomed, and the eyes unconsciously narrowed into crescents. "Then Supreme Mage, what do I need to do next?" "Next you need to." Russell spoke eloquently. Careful lessons were arranged for her, but then again, the existence of this origin magic power is really dangerous. Even, he was a little afraid to hand over to other mage to teach. "I'm afraid that something unexpected will happen." Looking at the beautiful figure in front of him, Russell couldn't help but sigh in his heart. There is a good saying. The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. Who called me the Supreme Mage? Not far away. Looking at the figures of the two, Tony was very angry with himself. However, in my heart, I couldn't help being a little envious. The difference in treatment is too obvious. Why the hell was I just thrown to other people to teach me when I became mage? And Wanda, can the Supreme Mage teach in person? Could it be because she is more beautiful? Do you have to say that Wanda can't teach other mages besides him? I see that you are clearly greedy. ISP, Tony groaned inwardly. Aside, Stephen couldn't stand it any longer. He waved his hand and shook it in front of his eyes. He interrupted his envious and jealous eyes. "Tony Mage, it's time to continue our lessons." Hearing this, Tony suddenly came back to his senses. Looking at the long, unshaven face in front of him, he couldn't help but sigh. I thought that with the dwarfs in charge of the work of Bifrost, it would be able to stop for a while. Unexpectedly, Modu Mage has another problem. Well, to be precise, it should be that he was hit too hard and stimulated too hard. Especially the brothers and sisters who were learning, suddenly awakening. It directly made him suspicious of life. Let go of the burden. And the task in his hands fell on Tony's head. It's just sad. Thinking of this, Tony couldn't help but smile wryly in his heart. Turning his eyes to the figure not far away, he felt a little heartbroken. Turning around, he said angrily, "Go, let's practice in another place." "Where are you going?" Stephen was suddenly at a loss. Isn't this soul magic the same wherever it goes? Is there any difference in this? Go to New York. After finishing speaking, a smile appeared on Bing Chi's face. Just right, you can catch up with Pepper Potts. At the same time, Asgard. The jumping points like a honeycomb are constantly opening. Huge groups of warships appeared one after another. On Bifrost, the colorful bridge deck is more and more eye-catching. The torrent of energy is gathering. Along with it, even the entire control room became dazzling. Control room. Looking at the huge warships all over the starry sky in front of him, Odin couldn't help feeling a little bit emotional. It's been a long time since such a huge war has been fought. "Frigga, please help me protect Asgard." Next to her, Queen Frigg nodded upon hearing the words. But immediately, he seemed to think of something, and hesitation started. But, keep the history. This time it can be regarded as Asgard coming out in full force. There are only a handful left. If you encounter something that cannot be solved, you can go to the Supreme Mage, Odin said with a smile. I've talked to him and he'll help us. Turned his head and turned to the side. Looking at the figure eager to try, his face suddenly became a little hesitation. As for Thor, forget it, let's go with me. Don't let him realize the cruelty of war. It is estimated that this hammer will think that war is a fun thing. Immediately, his gaze was cast to the other side. Is your army ready, Carol? Hearing this, Carol was shocked. However, there was a confident smile on his face. Waved his hand and said, "No, I'm enough alone." How do I feel? Did it fall into the pit? How can I be extravagant and hardworking? In the end, you told me that one person is enough. Wakanda. On Bifrost. Looking at the brand new bridge in front of him, a smile appeared on Russell's face. The work efficiency of these dwarfs is really much faster. Just look at their shapes. Definitely a master in the construction industry. And, proficient in various forging techniques. Even Asgard's magic technology is clear. The only pity is, this is not a fighting race. Otherwise, their individual combat ability is definitely much stronger than that of the Asgardians. However, casting a glance at the side, Russell vaguely guessed the reason for this. Just one head accounts for 1/3 of the height of the body. The head and thighs are short, seriously affect the balance of the body. Let alone fighting. I'm afraid, even in daily life, there will be some inconvenience. Well, such body structure may be related to their living environment. After all, it is in Nadawi. A fixed star furnace is exposed, banging away all day in a smithy. I'm afraid, the air there. One bite is a periodic table of elements. The content of heavy metal elements is absolutely beyond the standard. This big-headed doll. It's reasonable to think about it. But immediately, Russell stopped thinking about it. Turning his head, he looked to the side. Ikwi, how long will it take to complete this Bifrost? Hearing this, eyes suddenly stopped in his tracks. A smile appeared on his face. Soon. After a while, the construction will be completed. Hearing this, Russell couldn't help but rolled his eyes. Every time I ask, these dwarfs always say this. I don't know if this is perfunctory, or it's really fast. After all, even he doesn't know whether his deal with Odin is a loss or a profit. Exchange the destroyer armor for the help of the dwarfs. Well, temporarily. After Odin's battle is over, he still has to return it. In this way, the matter of building a new armor can be temporarily put aside. To free these dwarfs from their work, Russell also took great pains. But beside, Ikwi seemed to think of something suddenly. Turning his head and looking over, he reminded. By the way, Supreme Mage, after the establishment of Bifrost, an Asgardian is needed. Like Heimdall in Asgard, definitely, there was a word he hadn't said yet. That is, might still need to be like him. Owning a pair can see through the 9 realms. It even casts its sight on the God's eye of the universe. However, there was a gleam in Russell's eyes. With a move in my heart, I immediately understood what he meant. I don't think you need to worry about this. The existence of Asgardian, I have already arranged. Talking. A gold vortex suddenly appeared in front of him. Reach out and grab it. Immediately, a figure was pulled out by him. Dormammu, from now on, the work of Bifrost will be entrusted to you. Bifrost. Me? Dormammu was stunned. How did you manage to arrange for him again? Didn't you say yes, let him take a good rest for a few days? Lately, he's been caught in a painful cycle of itching all over his body. Mainly. After drinking the so-called potion of the Supreme Mage, the bones soared. My whole body is about to turn into a quill. Just shave my bones every day, and look handsome. It made him want to cry. Not to mention, there are other things to arrange for him. Russell's heart moved, and he immediately understood what he was thinking. Smiled comfortingly. Don't worry. What happened last time was just an accident. If I have time, I will help you solve your troubles. And now, I hope you can protect the existence of Bifrost. Well, and control Bifrost at any time. As for the remaining questions. About Dormammu can't observe the 5 ghosts like Heimdall. Perhaps, it can be solved with a magic weapon. Magic artifact? Ikwi was a little stunned. Yes. Russell nodded with a smile. Soon, a shining orb appeared in his hand. The Pearl of Agamotto. With the existence of this thing, the same effect can be achieved. It's kind of wasted though, but, no way. He was even more reluctant to take out other things that were more suitable. Heard the words. Looking at the dazzling orb in his hand, Ikwi couldn't help but choke speechlessly. The surging and surging magic power radiates. Even he can feel the strong power contained in it. After a burst of panic, he became even more speechless. You are not a magical weapon, you can already be regarded as a divine weapon. It's about the same, as long as it works, Russell said indifferently. What's the difference between artifacts and artifacts? Anyway, he can't use this thing most of the time. Too many choices, too few opportunities. Ikwi. What a waste of money. Prodigal son. Is this the way you use it? How about asking Heimdall to snap his eyeballs off and trade them with you? Believe me, he will be very happy. Carry Empire. Carry Star. Among the towering spire-like buildings. Thanos' figure looms large. Looking at the latest information in his hand, he suddenly couldn't help frowning. Carol is back again? Already on the border of the Empire? And, this time also brought Odin? Asgard's fleet? Yes. The voice of supreme wisdom suddenly sounded. The cold voice contained uncontrollable anger. It seems that what you said about the alliance between Carol and Odin is true. This time, they are going to get serious. I believe if it is not too far away. It is estimated that the place where Bifrost lands will not be on the edge of the Empire. I am afraid. These guys can't wait to drive the fleet directly to his face. Go straight to Wanglong. Hearing this, Thanos was speechless for a moment. What should I say? Their first feet just came off Nadawi. On the back foot, Odin caught up directly. As he thought about it, he couldn't help muttering in his heart. Could it be that old fellow Odin getting angry? Only. Didn't he consider the consequences of doing so? Or does he have other plans in mind? Think here. Thanos shuddered. After thousands of years, even a pig has become refined. What's more, this is still Odin. This guy has always been an old fox. Never fight unprepared. Similarly, they will not be as impulsive and hot-headed as young people. This time, he may have left something behind in Asgard. Thanos can be sure of that. Asgard's army is pouring out, and the interior is empty. Originally, he immediately thought about continuing his unfinished business. Now that I think about it, forget it. Looking up, he cast his gaze to the side. Has Loki gone yet? Yes. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Thanos' face. I thought it was just an idle move. Results now. Seems like it's going to come in handy. Kamar Taj. Inside the magic holy place, Russell sat cross-legged, eyes closed. The mind completely sank into the body, in the small universe. Tesseract energy emanates. The pale blue light illuminates the entire universe, accompanied by the scour of the energy torrent. At the edge, darkness spreads. It's like clearing the land. The entire universe is constantly expanding. Feeling the growing sense of power in his body, Russell couldn't help but smile brightly. This method is quite good. Essentially, matter, originally, is made of energy. Devouring planets and directly providing energy supply can both achieve the same effect. Only, looking at the universe, there are some empty scenes. Russell sighed unconsciously. It seems that we still need some embellishments with balls. Even as a decoration, it is essential. Otherwise, even if there is a breath of life, his universe and the territories of the Mephistos in those dimensions. What's the difference? Thinking of this, Russell couldn't help but feel a little chilled. Hastily shook his head, throwing away such thoughts. I don't want to make the whole world look like Dormammu. It was pitch black. There was no sign of life left. Such a dead dimension. I am afraid that only a 10,000-year-old house like Dormammu can stay there. Another person would have gone crazy. I was thinking so in my heart. However, at this moment, in my mind, the reminder sounded. Russell was taken aback for a moment. Immediately afterwards, he couldn't help frowning. Chat group? Who else is it, me? Could it be Odin? Haven't opened the chat group for a long time. Ever since the god Ego joined, there has been little attention paid to this aspect of the news. Mainly, the two homeboys, Egg and Dormammu. Don't say anything else. It must have been a panic. Have a common topic. The entire chat group will become their own chat room. Open the chat group again. Seeing the news in the group chat, Russell was taken aback for a moment. Immediately afterwards, the head was full of black lines. Faith, the Lord of Hell, Supreme Mage, I'm coming in, at Mage Russell. Inside the magic holy place, Murder's face was full of bewilderment. Facing Russell's unkind eyes, he looked dazed. Touching the back of his head, he was even a little confused. Exalted Mage, why are you looking at me like that? Did I do something wrong? Mo Faith was a little embarrassed and asked in confusion. Hearing this, Russell couldn't help but rolled his eyes. Do you really know? What you say can easily cause ambiguity, you know that. If you meet a brother who understands, then you will really have a big misunderstanding. By the time, I'm afraid that rumors will spread in the chat group. The wheels are confiscated from you. Ambiguous? Mo Faith suddenly became more at a loss. The expression on his face became more and more confused. Is there something wrong with what I said? He just greeted Supreme Mage politely. Could it be that there is any special meaning in it? Ignorant. Seeing his confused look, Russell was at a loss for words. Fine. I'm afraid, he just said this unintentionally. After all, not everyone is like Jayan. That being the case, let's get to the point. Modo, what is the purpose of your coming here? Russell frowned and asked in a deep voice, as the saying goes. Bother you for something. As far as Faith is concerned, there will never be a door-to-door visit for no reason. This is a demon with a strong purpose in everything he does. Russell doesn't think he'll do anything nonsense. Really. The next words immediately confirmed the conjecture in his heart. I saw Mo Faith smiled slightly. A friendly smile suddenly appeared on his face. Supreme Mage, I heard that there are 2 more children with extraordinary abilities in the magic holy place? Russell was taken aback when he heard that. Wanda and Pietro? What is Mo Faith asking about this? For a moment, he couldn't figure out what was going on in his heart. However, he nodded. That's right. Hearing this, the smile on Mo Faith's face suddenly became brighter. Wrinkles appeared on the old face, and the eyes were almost narrowed into a slit. I want to make a deal with them. Exactly, I need 2 such knights. Why? Supreme Mage, can you bear the pain and give up? Candid announcement. Everything is open to say. Hearing this, Russell couldn't help but sneered immediately, and stared directly at the past. That look, as if looking at a fool. Are you thinking a little too much? Put Wanda and Pietro in the hands of Mo Faith? Is this thinking about farting? These 2 people are proper potential stocks. There's no reason to send someone away like this. Not to mention, these 2 are still mage in the magic holy place now. Alright. Seeing the expression on his face, Mo Faith immediately understood the meaning. However, he had expected this. This time, it was just a tentative inquiry. After shrugging, he narrowed his eyes and spoke again. Supreme Mage, I think, you should know about the war between Asgard and the Kree Empire? Hearing this, Russell suddenly didn't understand what he meant. Unable to bear it, he frowned again. What do you want to say? Don't you think this is a great opportunity? Modo asked rhetorically. Maybe, you can take the opportunity to bring the mind gem too. In the words, it seems that there is a meaning. With a hint of bewitching, he urged. Hearing this, Russell couldn't help but half closed his eyes. This Hell Lord seems to have guessed something. But it doesn't matter. This kind of thing is no longer of much use to them. To put it simply, you can, but you don't have to. Bottom line. Still too much hate. However, with regard to this matter, I'm afraid Modo is trying to get it wrong. The reason why I didn't do it so quickly is because this ZBU has other uses. Kamar Taj. Inside the magic holy place. Sitting cross-legged on top. Russell closed his eyes and pondered, thinking about what Faith had said. Reminder or warning? He didn't know exactly what it was implying. However, Russell didn't care much about that. What should come, will come sooner or later. But in the face of absolute strength, these are not big problems. Only. Thinking of what Modo Faith said, he couldn't help but feel a little funny. You actually want to use Mind Gem as a condition to let me collect the soul for him? The old soul teacher. This Hell Lord has always liked to collect all kinds of souls and throw them into hell. Let the whole hell dimension liven up. At the same time, it can also provide some nutrients for the expansion of dimensions. Only. What makes Russell feel a little puzzled is that, as a demon with good taste, Faith has always been critical. Rather lack than abuse. Even if it is going to hell, not everyone is qualified. And this time, I don't know what happened, even the taste of this Hell Lord has changed. Like a shark that smells blood. Started to get hungry. Only. What he didn't know was that Russell didn't take his offer to heart at all. The existence of Mind Gem has never been a big problem. You don't need Faith's help at all, you can easily get it. But. Same. A word from the Hell Lord. At the same time, it also reminded him. It seems that I also need something like a soul now. Russell thought with his jaw down. Now. Within the small universe. The existence of the space gem saved him most of the effort. It seems that the endless supply of energy is enough for him not to worry about it anymore. Even if you lie on the bed like a salted fish every day, your strength is still rising. Not to mention, he often goes to bask in the sun. It is simply a rapid increase in strength, only. The growth of the microcosm is inseparable from the existence of life. Although it can evolve spontaneously, it is born naturally. However, it's really too slow to just wait like this. And. The chances of that are really slim. If you really wait, I really don't know what year of the monkey will be waiting for it. And the existence of the soul just happens to come in handy. Even a crushed soul can add some vitality to the small universe, right? Russell thought so. A smile suddenly appeared on his face. It seems that the battle between the Kree Empire and Asgard must go in and unite. Well, be a qualified melon eater. Only. Thinking of this, he immediately thought of another question. His face became weird. If I remember correctly, I seem to have promised Odin to help him protect Asgard? Well, during his war with the Kree Empire. But soon, he shook his head and put the question behind him. What the hell, there's the space gem anyway. Even if something happens, immediately, Bajud is back. And, at this time, everyone's attention all converged on this war. He also didn't think anyone would risk being beaten by Odin back home by stealing. Well, unless Hela happens to break through the seal. No way. If only there was such a coincidence. Then Asgard should be given to her. I was thinking so in my heart. However, at the moment, two figures hurried in. As soon as he entered the door, Tony couldn't help shouting excitedly. Supreme Mage, you don't think you can guess what I went through this time? Inside the magic holy place, there was excitement on Tony's face. Vividly, dancing and telling about my experience of returning to New York this time. And beside, Stephen couldn't help but nodded in agreement. Only, look at him with lingering fear. This experience seems to be a bit not so wonderful. A long time. Russell finally recovered from the mess of words. I understand what it means. Looking straight at the past, the expression on his face was a little dumbfounded. You mean, Nick Fury did you a favor? Yes, Tony nodded. Immediately afterwards, he smiled and came over. Did you know, Supreme Mage? If it weren't for their help, there might be some big trouble. Talking and talking. A palpitation suddenly appeared on his face. As if escaping from the dead, his face was filled with lingering fear. Even Pepper Potts almost had an accident. Those insidious guys kidnapped her directly in order to force me out. Fortunately, that Phil Coulson agent rescued her in time. Alright. Even a playboy like Tony has his moments of enlightenment. And Pepper Potts is his true love, but that's not why you're a lobbyist for Nick Fury. Looking at the figure in front of him, Russell smiled. Have to say, Nick Fury's plan was a success. At least, successfully obtained the friendship of the person in front of me. Ivan Vanke, who hates the Stark family, and Killian, who was dubbed by Tony in pioneering technology. They were all picked out by Nick Fury one step ahead of time. This feeling. Russell thought about it, and his face couldn't help becoming a little weird. It's like the whole shield is protecting him. What's wrong with Tony? Want to lay hands on him? Let's go through the shield level first. What should I say? Worthy of being Marvel's own son? Or, Nick Fury licked enough? Anyway, look at Tony. It is comfortable to be licked by this operation. He even came here to intercede with him. Hey. Having been punctured by the words, Tony rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. Supreme Mage, you can't say that. Nick Fury and those agents still help us a lot. What did Nick Fury do for you? Open your eyes and talk nonsense. It also helps a lot, and it would be nice not to add trouble. Russell looked over with eyes full of contempt. This guy is talking nonsense without conscience. What can be confirmed is definitely bought off by Nick Fury. Only, after thinking for a moment in my heart, Russell suddenly remembered something. A smile suddenly appeared on his face. Tony, what you said still makes sense. Didn't Nick Fury want to work with us? In that case, take them to Wakanda. Bifrost is almost finished too. At that time, they just need to cover up, after Bifrost starts. That rainbow-colored light soaring into the sky. It is unrealistic to want to cover up. Countries around the world will notice it sooner or later. Inevitably, we have to deal with some agent spies. This kind of matter, leaving it to S.H.I.E.L.D., as definitely a professional. Co-author, is my talk in vain? You use them as tool people again? Tony couldn't laugh or cry in his heart, but at the moment, he could only mourn for Nick Fury in his heart. Let's hope Nick Fury's expectations aren't too high. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'm going to be very disappointed. At this moment, frowning, Russell immediately noticed something was wrong. Look up to the sky. The line of sight seems to pass through the roof and climb all the way. Finally, until the earth falls. Suddenly, I found something interesting. A spaceship? Russell couldn't help but wonder. Alien visitors? Immediately, an idea popped up in his heart. Could someone want to invade? Which one is short-sighted? This could be Russell since becoming Supreme Mage. The most arrogant invasion method ever encountered. Others, either teleport through space, dimension channels and the like. Or, like purple sweet potato essence, the soldiers are overwhelming. Roll directly from the momentum, however. Like now. He dared to fly over alone. This was the first time he had seen it. Courage is commendable, courage is extraordinary. Moreover, it is so survivable. It landed in the direction of the magic holy place. Is this coming directly at 053, looking for trouble? Russell was a little dumbfounded, but soon. His face became a little weird. I don't know if it was his illusion. The breath inside the spaceship feels so familiar. It's as if I've been in contact with it somewhere before. Outskirts of the city, in some hidden corner. Both Tony and Steven stood ready. He looked solemnly at the alien in front of him. What do you think the aliens coming out of here will look like? Ghostly. No matter how ugly it is, it will never be as ugly as Dormammu. Cough cough. Dormammu, feel offended. On the side, Russell looked over with interest. He wants to know, who is this warrior inside? It came straight for him. This made him a little puzzled. I don't seem to have caused any trouble recently. Immediately. The hatch opens. A figure came out from inside. The moment they saw this figure, everyone was stunned. Loki. How could it be you? Russell was also a little taken aback. The expression on his face was full of surprise. This product. It's not that he has been sent to Thanos to go undercover. By the way, did you block him? Why all of a sudden, it's back again. Long time no see, Supreme Mage. The smile on Loki's face was a bit forced. What he couldn't hide was the bitterness in his smile. Looking at the several figures in front of him, Loki was very tired. In my heart, I couldn't help but sigh. If he had a choice, how could he be willing to return to this wretched place like Earth? A small Earth is simply more dangerous than the universe. Why are you back? Russell squinted. Said, slowly walked forward. Looking at the very sci-fi spaceship in front of him, he couldn't help but nodded in satisfaction. I'll be back when I come back. What gift do I bring? While talking, Russell turned his head. Tony, who was still in a daze, cast a glance, and couldn't help urging. Tony. Why are you staring blankly? Why don't you put this thing away? Don't you want to live up to Loki's kindness and don't want to study the above technology? Or, do you want to deal with the agents who are coming soon? This child has no eyesight at all. Take it back for research. Wouldn't it be nice to light up the technology tree? Hearing this, Tony suddenly came back to his senses. Immediately afterwards, with a bright smile, he stepped forward quickly. When passing by, he couldn't help but patted Loki's shoulder with a gratified expression on his face. Loki, you still understand me. Knowing that I need these, I brought it here from the universe. As he said that, he opened a huge amounts of portal. Straight up and swallowed the whole thing. Got you? I know your ass. These two people sang together. Before he could react, he took his vehicle away. When he came back to his senses, he suddenly exploded in anger. What does this mean? Haven't got my consent yet. Is it so open and above board that you robbed it openly? In my heart, the more I think about it, the more angry I become. Loki felt his blood rushing up, his whole body was about to explode. Looking at the nuclear eyes of Supreme Mage squinting over. Turning away the empty flat land in front of his eyes, he suddenly felt like crying without tears. I could only grit my teeth and swallow it abruptly into my stomach. What the hell is this? Finally freed from Thanos' grasp. As a result, he was taken advantage of by others on Earth? What a crime I did. Kamar Taj. Inside the magic holy place. Looking at the figure above, Loki was filled with resentment. In his heart, he was gnashing his teeth constantly. It's like being in a hurry. However, on the surface, he did not dare to show any signs of emotion. Dare to be angry but dare not speak. Only the little eyes that turned over from time to time at that time could reveal all this. Sit cross-legged. Noticing the look in his eyes, Russell couldn't help laughing a little. Didn't it just take your spaceship? As for looking at me like that. There are many such things in the universe. Even in Asgard, it is a common type. Hearing this, Loki couldn't help rolling his eyes immediately. It's easy to say, isn't it just a spaceship? However, it's not like you don't know. This is my only means of transportation now. Without this thing, how do you let me leave the Earth? I see that you are sincere and want to keep me on Earth. Thinking of this, Loki's heart suddenly became more and more sad. F*K. What's the matter? The experience of more than a month feels richer than the thousands of years in Asgard. However, rich experience is rich. However, this feeling. Well, something not so wonderful. Every day has to be on tenterhooks. It's like holding your head on the waistband of your trousers, frightened. Above. With just one glance, Russell understood what was going on in his mind. Full of resentment, all written on his face. There is no need to peek into his inner thoughts to be able to see it. Okay. Backquote. Russell shrugged, squinted and smiled. I think you should know what I mean. Climbing up the tech tree or something. It's all secondary. Is it because you are afraid that this little clever ghost will cause trouble? Or in other words, change a place with one shot? Looking down, Loki was full of resentment. Russell couldn't help but sigh. I regret that I didn't contact you sooner. Before leaving, he specially left a magic weapon for encrypted communication for Loki. I thought, even if he had fallen to Thanos' camp, it can also play a role in monitoring this purple sweet potato essence. Result. I thought the undercover agent Loki hadn't been inserted so quickly. Before he started to pay attention to the development of things, Loki appeared in front of him again, speechless. If the promised spy fails, can he still be a shit-stirring stick? As a result, he went back the same way again? But soon, Russell didn't bother to think about it so much. Looking at the miserable figure below, he asked, "Tell me, what happened?" Hearing this, Loki suddenly came to his senses. He looked up and smiled wryly. "Would you believe me if I said it was an accident?" Russell looked over with a half smile. Those eyes were like looking at a fool. "What do you think? There are so many surprises in this world. If you can't die, just fly to the Earth. Even if the Earth has always been troubled by disasters. But anyway, there is a reason." Sensing the look in his eyes, Loki immediately understood what he meant. He could only helplessly shrug his shoulders. "All right. I knew you wouldn't believe it. However, that's exactly what happened. On the matter you explained, a little accident happened." Thinking back on his experiences these days, Loki's face suddenly turned weird. Some can't laugh or cry, and some want to cry but have no tears. God knows what he has been through these days. If it wasn't for being targeted, he would probably have run away long ago. Accident? Russell frowned upon hearing this. However, looking at the expression on his face, interest suddenly came to his heart. Can't help looking over with great interest. What happened? This matter needs to be talked about after the most respect Mage sent me away from the Earth. Loki has no hesitation, and tells everything. And listen. The look on Russell's face, he became weird. Looking at the figure in front of him, he couldn't laugh or cry. "You mean, it was Thanos who asked you to come back? He wants you to be an undercover agent too? Gathering information? Huh? Double agent? Or a double-sided plug? What should this say? So clever. You also discovered the real purpose of this weak chicken." Alright. The whimsy of Thanos. Russell was stunned directly. He thought he was the only one who thought of this coquettish operation. After all, for Loki's character, he is quite familiar with it. Can get his correct use method, however. What he never expected was, at the same point, the death room has also arrived. And, even more decisive, just stuffed him back and sent him back to the Earth. Could it be that he saw through Loki's character at a glance? Or, what did he notice? For example, use mind gems ability. Probing Loki's inner thoughts and such. Russell rubbed his chin in thought. However, he glanced at Loki's figure. He suddenly had a guess in his heart. It should be the first possibility, after all. Loki's face. Originally is the perfect portrayal of his character. All smiles, polite under the guise. Make a first impression. 2 words to describe. Hypocritical, it's easy for the to impress. And Russell didn't think Thanos would be so cautious either. But soon, another question popped up in his mind. That is, what exactly did Thanos ask you to come back for? Russell stared straight at the past, and opened his mouth questioningly. What about Asgard? Or Odin's move? Or, is it infinite gems? It's all possible. Hearing this, Lu Ji was taken aback for a moment. Immediately afterwards, he also fell into deep thought. Recalling Thanos' meaningful eyes, he suddenly shuddered. Soon, he shook his head, threw away the messy thoughts in his heart, and said, "He asked me to look into the infinite gems thing. He said that Asgard should have a space gem, well, it seems to be called Tesseract." Without any hesitation, Loki sold Thanos' backhand. In just a few words, you can say everything you know. For his unscrupulous behavior, Russell does not comment. But Tesseract? Hearing this, Russell almost couldn't hold back his laughter. This guy doesn't really think the space gem is still in Odin's hands, does he? When is this old calendar? However, think about it. Russell suddenly felt that this made sense again. Perhaps, even Odin himself may not know that the Tesseract is already in my hands. After all, It was his original intention to hide this thing on Earth. Just so no one else gets it, and it never occurred to me to collect infinite gems. And, more importantly, Odin is a ruthless guy who can give away reality gem directly. Rather give away than keep 2 infinite gems in the same place. If he finds out that I have both the time gem and the space gem, Russell thought to himself about the consequences. Well, it is very likely that we will break up directly. Even if there is no big fight, the relationship will directly drop to freezing point. But soon, he stopped thinking about it. My mind was entirely on another question. This is Thanos' little trick. It seems that he is playing a big game of chess. I believe that once Loki gives accurate information, he will absolutely say nothing, leaving behind his comrade in arms, the Carey Empire. Go straight to Asgard all the way to steal the house. Infinite gems and infinity gauntlets. The weight of these 2 things was much heavier in his heart. In contrast, the affairs of the Carey Empire may not be worth mentioning in his opinion. It just happens to be the right time, however. A moment of Russell's contemplation. Below, Loki is a little ready to move. Looking up, looking at the figure in front of him, he asked with some hesitation. Exalted Mage, can I ask you a question? Hearing this, Russell suddenly came back to his senses, and asked with some doubts. What is the problem? Have you heard, Odin's daughter? Loki asked tentatively. At the same time, curious eyes also looked over. Someone told me that I still have a sister. Before Thor and I were born. And, until now, she's alive. Hela? Hearing this, Russell was a little surprised. Immediately afterwards, the expression on his face couldn't help becoming serious. Who told you about this? There are not a few people who know about this matter. It's just that most of them don't intend to mention this matter. Especially, in front of Loki, the Prince of Asgard. This person has bad intentions. Thinking of this, he suddenly had a vague premonition in his heart. This time Loki came back suddenly. It doesn't seem so simple. Looking at his expression, Loki understood what it meant. Suddenly, some 3 views collapsed. He stared wide-eyed and looked over. Is all this true? Do I really have a sister? The thoughts in my mind are even more complicated. Originally, he thought it was a joke with him. Then someone told him, did this joke come true? He, Loki, is the son of Odin, although it was picked up. However, he thought he knew enough about Odin. But never expected that there is actually an unknown sister? In this way, don't I become Asgard's day? Self-deprecation. Another step away from his dreamed throne. However, thinking of this, he couldn't help but gloat in his heart. It's not me who should worry now, but Thor. Anyway, in his current situation, there is no chance for the throne of the King of Gods. On the contrary, Thor, the successor to the throne of the King of Asgard, should have a headache about this problem. At this moment, he seemed to be able to see Thor's bewildered look. A smile could not help appearing on his face. Only very quickly. Noticing the increasingly hostile look in the eyes above, he suddenly shuddered. He nodded quickly and replied, it's Thanos. He told me the truth. Thanos. Russell was taken aback when he heard that. For a moment, he fell into deep thought. The purpose of this purple sweet potato essence is not as simple as he imagined. Wakanda. This steel city hidden in the primeval forest. We have a new guest today. What? Are you sure that everything that appears to us now is true? Instead of your damn magic? Nick Fury looked around in disbelief. There are many high-rise buildings, very sci-fi colored buildings. It's like coming to the future world. Those eyes with deep doubts were like Grandma Lou entering the Grandview Garden. He didn't exclaim directly, he was already well informed. Next, though. Phil Coulson apparently didn't have time to answer his question. In this regard, deaf ears. His eyes kept scanning the surroundings, and he kept muttering to himself. It feels like a dream. Everything around me seems so unreal. Here, he saw many black technologies that he had never seen outside. Similarly, many tribal customs were also found. These 2 very different styles are intertwined in an eerie balance. Mesmerizing to watch, unforgettable, definitely. In it, he inevitably found similarities with the outside world. That is, the stench of money. Don't think that because he is bald, he is ignorant. As a specialty of Wakanda, he knows about vibranium. It's just that he has heard that this kind of thing has always been known as rare. Vibranium that can live outside is calculated at a sky-high price. Most of the time, money can't buy it. However, what made the corner of his mouth twitch was, after just a few steps, he discovered many vibranium products. This is so. No, what about rare metal? What kind of trouble is this street full of? Blatantly showing off your wealth. At the same time, Nick Fury on the side also noticed this, and his expression was shocked. Look at each other. For a moment, the two looked at each other. Then, they looked to the side at the same time. This style of acting, similar to someone. What are you doing looking at me like that? Noticing some unfriendly gazes, Tony couldn't help curling his lips. Do you really think this is magic? Or, give yourself 2 slaps and try. Maybe you can wake up a little bit. If you didn't help me a lot, you even promised to help. Otherwise, I wouldn't beg in front of Supreme Mage to bring you here. Although, I don't know if this is good or bad for them. Anyway, for him, this matter is definitely a good thing. After all, it's hard to find these 2 big bosses. Tony secretly had a plan in mind. If you really follow the Supreme Mage's request, no matter how aggressive he is Tony Stark, he will still be hurt. And the existence of these 2 is just right. Before coming, the conditions have been negotiated. Well, the blame man is scheduled. Hearing this, the 2 suddenly came back to their senses. Glancing at the surrounding scene, Nick Fury couldn't help but shook his head with a wry smile. No, I've completely believed it. It's just that this matter is a little difficult to accept for a while. Some still haven't recovered from the shock. All of this is from Wakanda, one of the poorest countries in the world, can you believe it? Poverty? The richest man in the world is not so rich. Whether it is various future technologies or the existence of vibranium, they are all priceless. An existence that cannot be measured by money at all. If the existence here is exposed, maybe the whole world will fall into a crazy situation. Nick Fury couldn't help feeling deeply. It reminded him of the magic holy place, just like the existence of magic. There are always some people who are not afraid of death, and want to go to pick peaches with a fluke mentality. Hearing this, Tony immediately raised his eyebrows. It is precisely because of knowing this consequence that Wakanda has been hiding in this place for thousands of years. On the side, Phil Coulson nodded approvingly. When humans become greedy, who doesn't know what will happen? However, after touching the back of his head, he suddenly remembered something. Turning his head, he looked over with some embarrassment. Mr. Stark, may I ask if there are any products here? For example, a hair restorer with remarkable effects. Hair restorer? Hearing this, Tony was a little stunned. Immediately afterwards, he glanced at the smooth forehead. Almost laughed out loud. What the hell, the midlife crisis is gradual. I believe it will not be long before another freshly baked marinated egghead. No wonder such questions are asked. However, Tony didn't have an accurate answer to this question. After all, who knows if Wakanda would be so boring and develop this kind of thing specially. I recommend you to get a hair transplant, Tony suggested solemnly. Trust me, the technology here makes it so easy. And immediately, he changed the topic and continued. However, we don't have time for hair transplants right now. Because, there is a big project here, and it will be finished soon. Before that, we still need to do some preparatory work. Big project? Preparations? Nick Fury and Phil Coulson were suddenly stunned, and looked over with puzzled eyes. Tony shrugged and continued, it's easy. You pay me, I'll do it. Perhaps in the near future, you will have the opportunity to experience the feeling of traveling in the universe. Travel in space? Hearing this, the 2 of them became even more confused. Where is this all? Are you building a space shuttle? No, Tony shook his head. Immediately afterwards, he smiled mysteriously. This is a bridge, I hope you won't be too surprised when you see it. As he spoke, he took out a document from his pocket. He smiled and handed it over. Before that, help me find the materials on this order. I said it before, but now I have no chance to go back on it. Take it, open it and have a look. Nick Fury couldn't help but swear, and stared at the past. Are you trying to bankrupt us? Crazy? Are they all rare materials, the ones that are priceless in the market? The above rare materials fully cover our expenses for more than half a year. Speaking of this, Nick Fury immediately regretted it. The hand holding the file trembled slightly. Grinning his teeth, he suddenly felt a toothache. Really, money is burning, this is so. Regret it now, it's still too late. Hearing this, Tony smiled and patted him on the shoulder, comforting him earnestly. Trust me, it's definitely worth the money. You'll thank me when this big guy is built. Great value for money? Grateful? I really want to screw your head off and kick it like a ball. In the universe, the light and shadow are bright. Huge amounts of energy beams falling down the sky like meteors. Destructive energy fills the entire starry sky. Countless warships collided fiercely, accompanied by a gold figure passing by like a comet. Immediately there was a series of explosions. This is the battlefield between Asgard and the Kree Empire. Its location is already close to the hinterland of the Kree Empire. However, at the moment, huge amounts of Asgardian fleet. Odin didn't care about the situation on the battlefield at all. Looking at the phantom of the spirit body in front of him, he was in a daze. What? Exalted Mage, you mean to say that Thanos Hela told Loki about? Yes. Russell nodded. With his reaffirmation, Odin's face suddenly became ugly. His brows were furrowed, as if they were about to be twisted into a rope. And in my heart, I scolded my mother directly. MMP, this purple sweet potato essence is messing up. Hela's business is to him. Proper black history will damage his majesty as a god king. I can't wait to erase all traces of these things. However, he had calculated thousands of times, but he didn't calculate that Thanos would come to this people. Just tossed out his old background, and what made him even more unable to bear the urge to swear? Still at this time, now that he is far away in the Kree Empire, how can he have time to go back and deal with this matter? Looking at the figure in front of him, Odin sighed deeply. Supreme Mage, then I can only ask you to help me keep Loki in check. After I come back, I will deal with this matter. He knew Loki's character well, but because of this, I felt more and more worried in my heart. Curiosity killed the cat. No. The one who was killed may also be Loki, and the whole of Asgard. If Hela were to break the seal now, it would be a disaster. This is a brutal executioner. Although, he acted under the instruction of his father. However, it does not affect Odin to see through her character in the slightest. She will take revenge and slaughter the entire Asgard, leaving only the obedient ones. Hearing this, Russell nodded immediately to express his approval. Indeed, this evaluation can be described as hitting the nail on the head. Can't tell, this Odin still knows Hela quite well. Worthy of being a real daughter. You can even guess what she wants to do after she comes out. However, it is very likely that I saw it through a prophetic dream. Like Ragnarok. In the dark, there will be warning signs appearing. The strength has reached their level, it's an uncommon thing. However, Luo glanced at Odin in front of him and said with a smile. Recently, there are a lot of things to deal with. Take care of Loki. I can only do my best. What do you say, Nima? Want to negotiate terms with me again? Odin gritted his teeth for a while, and squinted his eyes. Still, Russell is unflappable. The expression on his face did not waver at all. I believe you are not clear about the gathering of celestial bodies, right? With Heimdall's enhanced version of Acute Eyes plus microphone, it is absolutely impossible for him not to know about it. And now, still staying on the battlefield of the Kree Empire, it is clear that this troublesome matter is to be left to him to deal with. I think you should think about it now, how to repay me when you come back, Russell said with a smile. If you don't want something, you need a life. There is a way to snatch my eternal gun. Soon. The projected spirit body dissipates. Odin suddenly felt a little tired and felt a headache. This troublesome thing. In the past, it was rare to see in 1,000 years. One crop after another. A swarm of bees, all ran out. Now, I can only hope that Supreme Mage can catch Loki, he muttered to himself. If something goes wrong with the seal, I'm afraid the whole of Asgard will be severely damaged. As for the convergence of celestial bodies, something dark elf or something. What is that spicy chicken? He can't beat it with one hand. But, suddenly, Odin couldn't help but have a question in his heart. The Supreme Mage said that Thanos told Loki? How did Loki and Thanos hook up? Detail. The more he guessed, the more Odin felt something was wrong. Could it be that there is some conspiracy in it? Did I just fall into the pit again? And at this time. Thor, who listened quietly to the whole process, also recovered from his bewildered expression. Immediately afterwards, impatiently asked, Father, who is Hela? Hearing this, Odin was taken aback for a moment, and came back. Immediately afterwards, his gaze turned back. In my heart, anger rose slowly. You idiot, this is not your concern. As he spoke, he couldn't help gnashing his teeth. With a tone of hatred for iron and steel, he said. Look at that Ms. Carroll, I can't figure out why I, Odin, would have such an idiot as you. Originally is not smart enough, reckless is not as reckless as others. What do you want? This is so. Lying gun. I should never have asked this question. Kamar Taj. Inside the magic holy place. Looking at the somewhat dazed figure below. Russell couldn't help shrugging his shoulders, and said in a teasing tone. Loki, you should have heard the conversation just now, right? Do you feel like you're being valued for the first time? Below. Loki was speechless for a moment. What the hell? After saying this, why does it feel like a prisoner? God is so important, do I need this kind of attention? These FC King things have become the focus of care. But then again, even Odin is relieved. Please take care of the unfathomable supreme mage in front of him. Can this not be taken seriously, to know? Even when he escaped from Asgard, it just needs to be out of Heimdall's sight. And now, want to escape from the hands of the supreme mage. Basically impossible. Yet, such a prudent approach by Odin. But it aroused his curiosity even more. It's like a greedy worm is tickling, it's very itchy. This cheap sister, what did she do to become like this? Judging from what they said, it seems that it was directly sealed. And, think about it. Since he could remember, he hadn't heard any news about this cheap sister. Hiss. Think carefully. So it has been sealed for thousands of years. Loki couldn't help but click his tongue inwardly. To be honest, a bit ruthless. Is this the consequence of pissing off Odin? Not even letting go of his own daughter. Scared. Somewhere in Europe. Inside a factory. Looking at the strange spatial fluctuations in the center, Loki couldn't help muttering. Why did you bring me here? Is it just to watch this? Some kind of strange space phenomenon, or a space wormhole. That's it. Such things are rare though. But it's not unheard of, right? At least. Just around Asgard, there are many such space wormholes. Hearing this, Russell couldn't help but smile immediately. Although it looks ordinary, what's inside is definitely a surprise. Before entering, he had already noticed the fluctuation of infinite gems. The power of the mind is distributed, and you can directly feel the vast energy in it. Scarlet's energy is like a fog that permeates the whole soul. It's kind of submerged in it unconsciously. It even feels like a dream. Hidden inside is a reality gem. With that said, he turned his head away. He half closed his eyes and said with a smile. Maybe it's TIE particles. I believe you should feel more familiar with such a title. Reality gem? TIE particles? Hearing this, Lu Ji was stunned. Couldn't help stretching out his hand to stop, and hurriedly said. Wait, aren't TIE particles an artifact of the Dark Elves? Is it the reality gem? If not for the experience since this time. Believe he has no idea what infinite gems are. This treasure in the universe contains vast power. Even Thanos is on the lookout for them. TIE particles are reality gem? So, plus the Tesseract owned by Asgard, and the time gem in your hand, Supreme Mage. Aren't there 3 infinity inkstones in the 9 realms? Thinking of this, Loki was suddenly even more at a loss. What about spreading throughout the universe? As a result, the 9 realms accounted for half of it? Such a statement is indeed true. Russell couldn't help but nodded. Things like Asgard's Tesseract though. Odin probably wants to hit someone after hearing this. Hearing this, Loki's heart skipped a beat. He raised his head, stared wide-eyed at the road. Supreme Mage, do you think there are other gemstones in the 9 realms? For example, Dunheim. Even a dark elf crushed by Asgard has reality gem in his hands. And the Frost Titans have been able to support Asgard for so many years. I'm afraid there is something tricky in it. You're thinking about farting. Seeing through his thoughts at a glance, Russell couldn't help but sneer. This Frost Titan can last for so long, can it all depend on Odin's righteousness? Plus, the artifact casket of ancient winters of Frost Titan was snatched by Odin and collected into Curry. The threat has been completely lost. That's what made Odin let them go. Definitely. If according to Odin's temperament when he was young, why not just ask Hela to come and slaughter them? The fate of the Dark Elves is the best proof. 2 or 3 big cats and kittens. Anyway, there is no one who can fight. Even eating dirt is an extravagant wish, so I can only sleep in a battleship. However, thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel moved and looked up at the sky. These Dark Elves should be here soon. Dark Elves? Loki was a little puzzled when he heard that. Aren't they extinct? Hearing this, Russell gave him a sidelong glance. Who told you that? Odin. Do you believe what this old guy says? Would you believe it if he said you were his own? I believe in hell. Let's dye Odin's skin color to blue first. Among the 9 realms, in a starfield of dead silence. Darkness is the only color here. Even if there is starlight shining in, it is extremely dim. At the moment, silent in the dark, huge amounts of battleships. Sleeping figures gradually woke up. Has this time already come, the time when the celestial bodies converge? Looking at the dark scene outside the window, the dark elf King Luo gritted his teeth. This time, I will make you pay the price, what Asgard did to them. Whenever I think of it, it seems like yesterday. Still fresh in memory, impressive, and at this moment. A voice came suddenly. Discover the breath of Thai particles. For a moment, Malekith looked surprised, hastily ordered, said. Go now and bring it back, Kamar Taj, inside the magic holy place. On the huge training ground, there are figures all over the place. In addition to the necessary holy place, Mage guards the holy place. All the mages gathered together solemnly. Above, Russell's figure stands out. At the moment, looking at the mage below, the expression on his face looked a little weird. I don't know if a mage wearing a steel battlesuit can still be called a mage. The light is dazzling. Under the sunlight, it is a neat steel legion. The thick battlesuit covers the whole body. The luster of the metallic color is particularly dazzling. On the chest is a conspicuous blue arc reactor. Just like Tony originally's style, only. They are all neat silver and white, without his flamboyant gold and red. This is the nano battlesuit prepared by Tony. While possessing various abilities of the steel battlesuit, it can release magic. Russell originally thought about switching to vibranium nano battlesuits. It is safer and more durable. Only, these things alone made Tony tired. Almost bankrupted Stark Industries. Think about it, or forget it. But, thinking about it, this approach seems to be on the old path of Asgard. Russell thought to himself. Well, magic plus technology. Steel battlesuit plus magic. Nothing wrong. And beside, Loki's eyes widened, his face full of disbelief. I couldn't help pointing. Supreme Mage, are you sure these are all mage? You call this mage? Are you sure you are fighting with magic, not with the iron skin on your body? Shoulder to shoulder when fighting. Hearing this, Russell couldn't help giving him a sideways glance. What? As a mage, can't you fight in armor? He is the least qualified person to say that. Let's not talk about the others. Just the armor on his body, which is called Bambi. He has no part to speak. A melee mage also stacks armor. Shame. Not to mention, charged up with a dagger and turned out to be a human head. It's almost embarrassing. Gandalf. Sensing the contemptuous gaze, Loki couldn't help shrinking his head immediately, obediently obeying his heart. Well, you're right. It's just that, Supreme Mage, intends to use these against the Dark Elves. That's right. Russell nodded, giving him an accurate answer. Not that he believed how strong these mages were. Rather, he is deeply aware of how weak those Dark Elves are. As someone said, no one can beat it, it's all one shot. The only thing to note, maybe it's just the black hole grenade. To be honest, the existence of this thing is quite foul. Proper black technology category. Maybe we can get Tony to fix this thing, Russell thought to himself. After all, it is only used as a throwing object. It's a little too condescending. Soon, Russell turned his head and looked to the side. He patted his shoulder and said earnestly, Modu Mage, the task of guarding the magic holy place is entrusted to you. Hearing this, Modu was taken aback for a moment. Immediately afterwards, he quickly defended himself. Supreme Mage, I think you can choose someone else. Like Tony Mage, he's a much better fit than me. No. Russell shook his head. You are the most suitable candidate. It was not easy to catch up and have a chance to vent. In the end, you asked me to guard the house? Have to. Old Toolman. Kamar Taj. Above the magic holy place. The light is dazzling. Under the scorching sun. Russell holding the reality gem figure is particularly eye-catching. And beside, Tony, who was dressed in a red steel battlesuit covered in gold, looked at the figure beside him. For a moment, I couldn't help the corners of my mouth twitching. Supreme Mage, do you think it's appropriate to expose this thing so openly? Although it sounds a little cloudy, but, this time down. He also has a certain understanding of infinite gems. Don't say anything else. All you need to know is that this is a treasure with powerful abilities. And like the Supreme Mage in front of him, he was placed in front of everyone in an open and honest manner. Isn't it bare, naked teasing? It's like telling those who know the goods to come and snatch it. Such an approach doesn't fit your usual salty fish. Tony was talking, when he suddenly noticed a dangerous gaze from the side. For a while, he coughed dryly twice and changed his words hastily. Cough cough cough. It's a low-key style. Seeing his appearance, Russell nodded in satisfaction. Don't make fun of his personality. Although he has nothing to do recently, he likes to run outside, bask in the sun and so on. But Russell thinks that in the position of Supreme Mage, but he couldn't be more dedicated. After all, there are a lot of troubles, and he can solve them by himself. How can it be called salted fish? But, glancing at the figure beside him, Russell's expression was a little playful. Some things, sooner or later have to face. Instead of waiting for trouble to come to your door, it is better to kill it before its influence spreads. This wave is called leading the snake out of its hole. It is obvious to guide the direction for those dark elves. Lure them here. Fishing law enforcement, find out. After all, it's easy to hide from open guns, but hard to guard against hidden arrows. Even if he wasn't afraid, he still felt a little troublesome. Instead, it is better to solve the problem at once. Moreover, only Chianri has ever been a thief. There is no reason to guard against thieves for 1,000 days. Aside, when Loki heard this, he suddenly felt something was wrong. This Supreme Mage, it seems, what are you implying? Product, fine product. However, before he could read something from these words, a voice in his ear interrupted his thoughts. Coming. Russell looked far away, looking up at the sky. Through the thick clouds, came to the blue sky white cloud above. A figure suddenly appeared outside the atmosphere. Battleship of the Dark Elves, at the same time. All world countries. Satellite monitoring room. The exclamation kept ringing. Everyone was stunned, watching the astonishing scene on the screen. What is that? What? The rumors of aliens invading Earth finally came true. New York, Trident Building. Inside S.H.I.E.L.D. Looking at the battleship slowly appearing from the breakthrough point on the satellite screen. Nick Fury couldn't help but take a deep breath. Is this the Dark Elves Tony was talking about? To be honest, I was intimidated, compared to the Kree battleships I saw when I was young. The warships of these Dark Elves are much larger. And, on the sides, the ferocious muzzle is directly exposed. Just from the surface, there is a kind of overwhelming momentum. Nick Fury has no doubts. The big guy in front of me can blow up the whole New York with just one shot. Beside, Phil Coulson was equally shocked, his eyes widened. But soon, his heart moved and he remembered something. Turned around and looked over. Boss, what should we do now? Is it what Tony said, or, you have other plans? Hearing this, Nick Fury couldn't help but rolled his eyes. Have other plans? Go F***K it. Where is the gap? How dare I have any plans? Do what Tony Stark says. Isn't it just working for the magic holy place, and the Supreme Mage needs to fall off his leg? Responsible for applying eye drops, so that the hearts of the 5 hooligans are a little tricky? This job of diplomat, Nick Fury, will definitely take it. Anyway, it can be considered to be related to the magic holy place, okay? What the hell? Correct. Suddenly, remembering something, he reminded again. Don't forget to remind those idiots in the military to keep the nuclear bombs in their hands. After all, it is no longer a day or two for the military's high-level brain circuits to be clear. When encountering some troublesome things, I think about nuclear peace to solve them. Sorry. Soon. Above the magic holy place. Above the thick clouds. Huge amounts of shadows emerged, shutting out the sunlight. Even covering the entire sky. Looking at the shadow above, Tony couldn't help but gasp. This is really a big guy, by contrast. Even Asgard's warships are not so huge, not to mention the one Loki brought back. Just like a toy. That's definitely. Russell nodded incredulously. This is the only power they have left. All the Dark Elves are on this. Desperately. Even the family property was taken out. Only. These Dark Elves are obviously not as moist as the dwarfs. This is the first time they have woken up in thousands of years. It's so miserable that it can't get any worse. It's like pressing all the cards in a hand, just to snatch tie particles. Soon. Putting away the reality gem casually, Russell suddenly stretched out his hand and patted forward. Instantly, countless space debris appeared. Crystal clear, flying in the air like glass shards. Like a spider web, the dense cracks spread rapidly. Even among them, there are creepy sounds. Mirror space, arranged. In the mirror space, an open and flat landscape. Palaces, temples, and brick and stone houses have all disappeared. The whole city, all turned into flat ground. This is the battlefield that Russell specially prepared. The purpose is to test the combat effectiveness of these mages in steel battlesuits to the maximum. After all, assisted by artificial intelligence Jarvis provided by Tony's intimate. At least, in terms of safety, it should be no problem. And he glanced at the uniquely shaped figure not far away. Russell was even less worried about this issue in his heart. After all, in terms of saving lives, Pietro is definitely a professional. Take a bullet to find out. Well, I just hope he's not stupid enough to eat a black hole grenade. Otherwise, red-haired people send white-haired people to find out. Even the urn is saved. Go up and down the holy place, just wait for the food to be served. Soon, accompanied by the roar of the battleship landing, the entire ground was shaking, as if it had been hit hard. Not long. Constantly figures came out of it one after another. The leader was a pale complexion and a unique figure in armor. It is Malekith, the king of the Dark Elves, at the moment. Looking at the weird scene around him, he was also at a loss. Why did it look like a city just now? As a result, it turned out to be a large plain. Underfoot, the metallic ground glistens, as if reminding him of something. But he didn't pay much attention to it. Immediately turned his head, looked towards the opposite side, and couldn't help frowning. These people seem to have been prepared for a long time. A large and uniform team. The figure of the steel battlesuit shines brightly in the sunlight. Like a sculpture made of steel, it is extremely cold. But soon, he didn't care about this issue anymore. It's the breath of TIE particles, Malekith couldn't help exclaiming. He came after the breath. But I never expected that the coveted TIE particles would be delivered to my door by myself. This surprised him. It even feels like a dream. Immediately, his eyes were burning, and he looked over fiercely. People of Midgard, give me the TIE particles. And talking, still waiting for a reply, he raised his hand and swung it down violently. Attack. Take back what's ours, for a while. Behind. The black figure immediately moved into action. With heavy steps, he roared in his mouth. It rushed over in a mighty way. The other side. Looking at the figure rushing across, Tony couldn't help but have a weird expression on his face. He seems to be provoking us. Where does the confidence come from? Just because more people bully fewer people. Didn't he even have the most instinctive psychic warning? Or, sleep too long, the brain is Watts. However, there is one thing to say, these dark elves are really ugly. It's almost completely dispelled the fantasy in his heart. What skin is fair and beautiful, male and female are indistinguishable. Everything is a lie. These dark elves appearing in front of them. One by one, they all look like ghosts, if you put on a tuxedo and fangs. Tony looked at the figure not far away, and kept complaining. Maybe, some people will think they are vampires. This complexion, these pointed ears. To be honest, it really does look like it. Well, it's just that it may be the ugliest kind of vampire. There is a good saying, beauty is justice. He looks so ugly, he doesn't look like a good person. No wonder they were almost exterminated by Odin. Hearing this, Russell couldn't help but smile. This evaluation. It's pretty solid. It's really ugly, isn't it? However, he turned his eyes to the menacing figure approaching not far away. He wasn't interested in talking more. Turning his head, he patted Tony on the shoulder. This Malekith, I will leave it to you. Tony was stunned and couldn't help pointing. Immediately afterwards, suspicious little eyes looked over. Accordingly, shouldn't it be the Supreme Mage who will do it yourself? You think I have a chance against him? Even the words of the Supreme Mage about these dark elves. No matter how dismissive. But anyway, this one also has the title of King of the Dark Elves on his head, right? Where can it be weak? Think here. For a moment, Tony looked over suspiciously. This is not going to make me go to thunder, right? Is this another hole? Noticing his puzzled eyes, Russell couldn't help curling his lips and said disdainfully. No, they are not worth my shot at all. As he spoke, he rolled his eyes aside. The suspicion in his eyes grew stronger. Immediately feeling a little helpless, I could only pat him on the shoulder and said earnestly. Tony, believe in yourself. As a rare genius mage, your strength is already at the forefront of the entire magic holy place. Mere Malekith means nothing to you, definitely. Maybe some people will choose to call him spicy chicken shreds. Anyway, whatever it's called, this king of dark elves will definitely be a good dish. Alright, Hearing this, Tony finally reluctantly nodded his head, agreeing to go on. Looking at the Supreme Mage next to him, it doesn't seem like he is lying. And, indeed, there is one thing to say, he also has strong confidence in his own strength. Kamar Taj's magic plus vibranium nano battlesuit. It's so strong that it's about to swell. Looking at the blackness, the figure rushing menacingly. Tony also couldn't help gearing up, getting a little excited. Mages, follow me, accompanied by an order. Instantly. The light of the flame lights up instantly. Huge amounts of thrust burst out. Immediately afterwards, hundreds of figures rose into the sky in unison. The light of metal shines in the sky. For a moment, Chi-Chi rushed in the direction of the dark elf. Majestic. Rear. Seeing the figures of the mages charging, Russell couldn't help but feel his brain twitch. This is so. I already have a vibranium battlesuit, why do I need to turn on the magic shield? Does it mean that you can't fight without a shield? Also, why is it so good that it becomes a melee magician again? Why did I ask Tony to build a steel battlesuit, just to let you play melee? Can't play the series without riding face output? Russell felt a little tired all of a sudden. These mages are really unchangeable. Scanning around, he suddenly found a surprise, and he couldn't help showing a gratified smile on his face. Well, maybe only Wangda can save me some snacks. Did not rush directly into the battle group, wandering on the edge of the battlefield. Children can be taught. But soon. In the blink of an eye, the smile on his face froze immediately, and the corners of his mouth twitched uncontrollably. MMP this F***king. I just praised you a few words, and you rushed in for me again? Can't you save me some snacks? This one by one. Russell couldn't help feeling a little tired. However, at this moment, Loki on the side couldn't help but make a sound, pointing. Supreme Mage, you really don't want to take care of it? That Tony Mage's situation doesn't seem to be going well. Tony? Hearing this, Russell couldn't help but looked up and looked over. What appeared in front of my eyes was the scene of Tony being hit by mixed doubles. Under the stormy offensive of the two, they didn't even have a chance to fight back. He can only dodge with difficulty with the help of Jarvis. And beat him up. It's spicy chicken shreds and almost forgot that there is only cursed warrior. Looking at the conspicuous and ferocious figure on the field, Russell couldn't help but be amazed. This image, this shape, it has a fight with the hatred of the past. To say that spicy shredded chicken is a true dish. Well, this curses warrior, it really is something. After all, it is fighting with Yangshu, a ruthless character who dares to fight with his life. In terms of combat effectiveness, it is indeed something to watch. Well, the tallest of the shortest. There is a difference when there is a comparison. On the side, Loki watched his reaction and sighed again and again. In my heart, I couldn't help but cry twice for Tony Merc. It's really, I have saved 8 lifetimes of blessings. On the side, Russell nodded in satisfaction, patted him on the shoulder and exhorted. Remember not to let me hear you speak ill of me in your heart, or. Hearing this, Loki broke out in a cold sweat. Understood. I understand. The little chicken nodded hurriedly like pecking at rice. In my heart, I was so aggrieved that I could not stop crying. This tube is probably too wide, and at this time, not far away, on the chaotic battlefield, there was a roar from Tony. Bah, you despicable dark elves, what's the point of fighting 2 against 1? Come on, face me head on, be stronger. Are you tickling me? Didn't you eat? Like you guys, I can fight all day and all night. Spicy chicken. If I can penetrate the armor, I lose. Ridiculous strength max. I'm afraid it's addictive to beating. In the mirror space, the fight continues. The battle between the dark elves and the mages is on. On the ground, countless cracks appeared. The gap like a gap in the abyss has swallowed many dark elves. On the battlefield, buried houses rise again. All kinds of shapes are unpredictable, as if to crush the enemy. Only. Soon, we found out. This practice is a waste of time. Because. What makes them dumbfounded is. The attacks of the dark elves are useless at all. It's like scratching the surface. Anyway, I feel nothing at all. Can't beat the vibranium battlesuit on them at all. The vibranium nano battlesuit covering the whole body completely envelopes them. Not even the slightest flaw was left to the other party. And. What if you can leave the scar on the vibranium battlesuit? The nano-mechanical bug inside the battlesuit can quickly repair these wounds. Not to mention, now even the battlesuit is impenetrable. Under the siege from all directions, it was intact. Simply, he let go of his hands and feet, and ran straight all the way. Looking at the situation on the battlefield, Russell couldn't help but yawned, feeling a little sleepy. To be honest, this is so easy, there is no viewing experience to speak of. It's just crushing all the way. And the only thing that can pose a threat to this vibranium nano battlesuit, the black hole grenade? Seeker Pietro find out, with his amazing speed. Before these throwing objects could be shot, he let them go with ease. By the way, many unlucky ghosts were killed, it's a big sadism scene. Except for Tony, who is still being beaten. Other Mage is probably going to have fun. I'm afraid, these Mage's melee routes can no longer be pulled back. Seeing the fist-to-flesh collision and howls on the scene, Russell couldn't help sighing with his hands on his forehead. Perhaps, he shouldn't have cost Tony a fortune in the first place. Build so many vibranium battlesuits. For this reason, he also took his own time into it. Go to Wakanda and lay out several layers of magical barriers for the benevolent old King T'Chaka. After all, when the old king heard the news, he immediately gave away some vibranium for free. However, it's obviously too late to regret it now. Russell couldn't help but sigh inwardly. I'm afraid, after this time, these Mage will love the vibranium battlesuit even more. This is simply not too great for the improvement of their combat effectiveness. It is somewhat impossible to get them to take the initiative to take it off. Turning his eyes away from the scene on the battlefield, Russell turned around and wanted to leave. At this time, Loki on the side was keenly aware of his movements. Supreme Mage, don't you plan to stay and see the result? Russell waved, with a face full of indifference. No. This result, don't look at it, even do nothing. Even hard consumption can kill these dark elves. A battle without suspense. There is no need to be optimistic at all. Seeing that he was about to turn around and leave, he hurriedly stopped at the roadbed. A charming, flattering smile on his face. Ahem, Supreme Mage, I need to tell you something. In the past few days, I have worked hard for you and made so many contributions. Look, this steel battlesuit, to be honest. On appearance, Loki's self-conscious steel battlesuit is for his handsome armor. Not even shoes. Don't say anything else. This amazing defensive power alone is enough to make his heart beat. If not witnessed, he probably wouldn't believe that such a fighting style existed in this world even if he was killed. There is no hiding. Resist hard, forcibly hit hard. This is for Loki, who has been Constitution, common, since he was a child because of the blood seal. It is simply a great gospel. If I have such a battlesuit, I don't need to be afraid of my good big brother Thor. Thinking of this, he suddenly became more and more excited. When the time comes, grab Thor's hammer backhand. Beaten in Asgard. Liquidate together. I will repay you tenfold. Rolling his eyes and laughing at constantly Loki, Russell saw through his inner thoughts at a glance. Involuntarily, I couldn't help but sigh in my heart. This kid, I'm afraid he's a little dazed. I've been thinking about that hammer all day. Even if we are far apart, I will think of it from time to time. This. Can only say, as expected, it was taught by Odin. Old lovers killed each other. However, about Loki also wanting a steel battlesuit. For this matter, you should find that person. Russell said, pointing his finger. After all, he is the real creator of these battlesuits. Who? Loki looked in the direction Russell was pointing at, and was stunned for a moment. It turned out to be him. Is it the beaten Tony Mage? He is not an easy talker. Anyway, watching him joke here for so long. Go up and help now, there is still a chance. Loki looked over for help. However, it was directly ignored by Russell. Patted him on the shoulder, smiled and encouraged. Do it well, I think with your ingenuity, you should know how to persuade him. After finishing speaking, without waiting for him to reply, he walked away directly. Only Loki was left alone, looking at the situation on the battlefield, a little messy. This is so. How do I know how to convince him? Could it be that I really want my little arms and legs? Can you rush up to help him? After thinking for a long time, Loki gritted his teeth and immediately made up his mind. With his eyes closed, his heart fluttered, he took out a dagger from behind. F***K it, done it, inside the magic holy place. Presented with a gold swirl. Russell's figure returned to the holy place again. Only. As soon as he appeared, he hadn't waited for him to sit down. His face changed, and he immediately noticed something strange. Huh. Now that the space opened by real gems is weak, Creatures from other dimensions have taken the opportunity to smuggle in. Familiar breath. Faint, almost to the point of imperceptible. Even the magic enchantment cannot detect its existence. Just ignore the past, if he hadn't kept an eye out. There is a little thing left in the space that is slowly recovering due to the influence of the reality gem. I'm afraid, I was really fooled by this stowaway. And soon. After a careful perception, his expression suddenly became weird. It's Dormammu. Why is he here again? Could it be that you haven't eaten enough because of the bitterness? There is one thing to say. Is it really a walk in the living room? How the hell did you come over to surround the door just after I left for a while? The sudden arrival of Dormammu caught Russell off guard. He couldn't figure it out. Obviously, he has suffered so much at his hands. Why doesn't this guy have a long memory? Do not believe in evil. Or, do you mean death does not change? Russell felt that the latter should be more likely. After all, as a dimensional Mephisto, in-Ra-level figure, it's normal to have a little temper, only. Backed by the dark dimension, you can do whatever you want. Can't be killed, a character like Brown Sugar. It seems that he still needs a more profound lesson, Russell thought faintly in his heart. Just kick him back like this, seems a little too cheap for him? Somewhere in Europe, reality gem opens space wormholes. The transparent space opening becomes deep, darkness envelops. As deep as a black hole, the dark breath filled the entire passage. The constantly spinning vortex is like a huge amounts of demon eye. The vast atmosphere filled the surroundings, but tightly bound in the surrounding. It's as if there is an invisible cage that isolates it. And in it, inside the ever-expanding dimensional channel, the huge body is slowly appearing. It's Dormammu. The dark breath enveloped the whole body, constantly churning. Under the colorful line mapping, it seems that there is no emotion at all, and the cold and piercing eyes are even more evil. Looking at the surrounding scene, joy flashed in Dormammu's eyes. Really, that damned supreme mage is really obsessed with other things. Otherwise, even if he can hide it from the magic barrier, it's hard to hide from that supreme mage, I am afraid. Once his dimension channel is open, I haven't had time to poke my head out yet. There is already a supreme mage waiting for him. Although it sounds a little uncomfortable, however, there is no doubt about the power of this supreme mage. Even, it is much more difficult than Ancient One. Seeing that everything was going well, there was no sign of being noticed. Dormammu couldn't help being ecstatic in his heart. The terrifying big face couldn't help showing a sinister smile. As long as I can sneak into the earth, then. After destroying the holy place barrier, isn't it possible to do whatever you want? However, at this moment, suddenly, a vortex of gold appeared. Soon, a familiar figure came out from inside. The ferocious smile on Dormammu's face froze for a moment. Immediately afterwards, he became astonished. Supreme Mage, why did you appear in this place? What if you got caught up in other things? Could it be that I received a false report? Or, crow's mouth? What do you say? And just came here? Glancing at Dormammu's figure, Russell almost couldn't hold back his laughter. This Dormammu, what a talent. Such a small dimensional channel, it's really lucky that he can think of it. It is really difficult for him to squeeze out such a huge body. Damn. Seeing the suppressed smile on his face, Dormammu couldn't help being furious for a moment. It feels like IQ has been insulted. Damn Mage, you're provoking a great Mephisto. Provocative? Hearing this, the expression on Russell's face couldn't help being a bit playful. Looking up, he looked over with interest. This is hardly a provocation. However, if you talk about provocation, you'll know right away. Talking. Physically, the light of magic radiates, dazzling. Constantly spread around and extend, brighten everything up. Instantly. Filled the whole place. Not good. Dormammu was startled. Immediately afterwards, he immediately recalled the previous experience of falling in the hands of this supreme mage. For a while, I couldn't help feeling a little flustered. Hastily forcibly retreated from the dimension channel. The huge body retracted into the dark dimension in an instant. Seeing this, Luo couldn't help laughing a little. I haven't figured out how to make a move yet, but you just ran away. Stress response? Or, have you been scared by him? And the other side of the dark dimension. A look of embarrassment flashed across Dormammu's hideous and terrifying face. This is so. What a shame. This is a subconscious reaction, there is absolutely no way to stop it. However, in the dark dimension, Dormammu suddenly gained confidence. Damn Mage, do you come in and try? See if I don't beat the shit out of you. I Dormammu. Dormammu kept shouting, and his tone gradually became rampant. Hearing this, Russell couldn't help laughing immediately. Good. Try it and try it.